Good afternoon. Here we are, practicing zazen. The reason we want to do intensive practice now and then, sitting for a whole day like today, or for 7 days like in Sesshin, is that repeated zazen, sitting one period and another period and another period and another, invites a different kind of mind, a field awareness. In our everyday life, this field awareness can drift so far into the background that it no longer shapes our activity. So, now and then, we just sit and invite this field-like mind to emerge.
Now, I think 4 weeks from now, 5 people in our Sangha will take the Bodhisattva precepts. And just a couple days ago, we did a full moon ceremony. At the occasion of the full moon, we renew our vows. Now, if you haven't taken the vows formally, then you, I guess, renew the vows informally. If you have taken the vows formally, then you are renewing the vows formally in a way. It happens once a month. And something that, I guess, mostly because we just did that, or some of us did that a couple of days ago, I'm holding this question, what is the role of vow in our practice? What's the importance of it? Now, I want to maybe recognize, or it's almost like a little confession, I don't talk about it much. I don't talk about it much because I'm somewhat skeptical about vows. I trust zazen. And what emerges from zazen. And vows always feel a little bit dangerous to me. It's sort of like more superego. Do you understand what I mean? More stuff to monitor about yourself and fall short of, and be self-critical about, or feel proud for accomplishing, and blah 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 blah. I mean, and on and on and on. When I was 25, my life reached a kind of dead end. I felt very clearly like I can't go on like this. It's funny because, like, from the outside, it seemed all fine. It's like, from the outside, I was, what should we call that? Succeeding. Like, people looked at me as like, well, he's doing great. But on the inside, things became, or revealed themselves to be quite meaningless. Like, what am I doing? This is not satisfying. I would say it was not satisfying to the degree where I'd have to call it I was depressed, Depression, I'm not talking about clinical depression, just my, garden variety depression, was like, couldn't see anything sparkling about the world anymore. It's strange, right? Like, the world is sparkling all the time. Like, just look at the blue sky. It's like it's too much blue. But if you're depressed, you're not seeing any of that blue radiating like mad. It's just like, see me, see me, see me, I'm so blue. And you're like, Anyway, that was my state. Now, not to compare myself to the Buddha, the historical Buddha, but I think the historical Buddha came to such a place, as the legend goes, like he lives in this palace. Let's not think about it as a palace. I mean, we live in palaces. The Buddha probably had some sort of house made out of clay. And it was bigger and more comfortable than everybody else's house. But we live in palaces. But anyway, it's not about palace or not. It's a framework. And the framework is held by other people. And that father has certain expectations, and the culture wants you to be something. There was a prediction about what the Buddha was going to be. It's not important. We don't have to go into the legend. It's just a legend. But it's an instructive story. And I was in the same place. Like, there's certain expectations that I felt from the culture and promises that I've made, and not even explicitly, implicitly, to myself, to my parents, to the culture. Now, just feel your version of that. And much of it is not particularly conscious. It's just a way to live, and you do it because that's how it's done. But for some of us, and let me just say, it's going to be different for each of us, but the fact that you're here tells me something, The fact that you spend a day meditating is unusual. So for each of us, something happened, something like, I can't go on like this. Some kind of pivot in your life. Now, what emerges in that pivot, in our tradition, this is called way-seeking mind. What emerges is the sense that there must be some other way. Way-seeking. There's other words like bodhicitta and so forth. I don't like to use words like this. I don't mind, but I don't like it because if I say bodhicitta, you're like, okay, well, how do I have to translate that? What is it? What is bodhicitta? Let's bring out a dictionary. Way-seeking mind just tells the whole story. You're looking for a way. Maybe the way. Your way. It has to be your way. You've already tried the way that other people are holding for you, the framework that seemed inevitable or that you just adopted because that's what's there. So way-seeking mind emerges, and it's a pivot in your life, in your experiences. And it takes a certain kind of courage to acknowledge it, because the nature of this way-seeking mind is that it does not know. It does not know how to go on now. It's not going to be this way, but what is it? It's open. So real openness, maybe for the first time. Now, we could ask, why does it happen? There's a pattern to it because it happens to people, and there's a certain similarity to what happens there. I'm trying to invoke it here. Why does it happen? Let me just share my understanding of that with you. Hopefully, I can keep it brief. What is reality? Reality is, in my view, undivided activity. Now, this is a word that's come to me through a translation of Dogen, who's really saying something else, but here's this expression, undivided activity. And it's doing something that I appreciate. Buddhism says everything is changing, or it says that things are impermanent. Okay, so this is the slot that activity falls into. Everything is activity. Everything. Some things seem inert, but they're not. They only seem inert. They're moving. Everything, if you go to the subatomic level, everything's just quivering, full of energy. If you watch a rock and it's just sitting there, it sits there until somebody kicks it. And then it's moving. Anyway, activity. And undivided means interdependence. Undivided means not two. Meaning there's an activity here and there's an activity there. And yes, they have a certain separateness, right? Like this activity, you, right? And this activity, you're not one. You're quite separate, There's activity there, and here's activity here. But undivided means it's not that the separateness is absolute. Everything in its separateness affects everything. This is interdependence. Everything affects everything. If it's one, it's just static. Like if it's one, if there's no differentiation within what you call one, then there's no interaffection. But everything is affecting everything. So there must be some kind of separateness, some kind of differentiation. Let's call it differentiation. So the activity of undivided activity is differentiation. Everything is actually becoming itself through differentiation. Every living being seems to have a desire, an intent to stay alive. And on top of that, not just to survive, but to thrive, to enhance its aliveness. If you look at a plant, it's like poor plant, the seed landed in some sort of difficult spot, under some other trees, not enough light. And this plant is finding a way, it's finding a way to get some light. Sometimes I think, a plant like this has to be very patient until these old plants are dying, then there's light. Okay, well, but the intent is there, the desire to live. We are like that. So recognize in yourself, this aliveness. It's a mystery. I don't know where it comes from. I don't think you know where it comes from. Like I'm just giving a descriptive term like undivided activity. Right? You can put other terms there. They all bring different baggage, you know. But if you study yourself, it's there. You know, this aliveness is there. It's nothing. It's not far. It's mysterious, but it's intimate. Now, the activity and the alive activity that you are, that I am, that we are, right? I don't see anything problematic with it. If there was something problematic with this, then, you know, biology is wrong. Like, then we should wish for everything to die and to be in some transcendent place. But so I'm just taking the view, there's nothing wrong with this aliveness, with this like life force that you feel to survive and to thrive. But we as human beings, different from plants and animals, we have this ability to represent this aliveness to ourselves cognitively, conceptually, and we call it I. And then you have the notion of a self. If you have the notion of a self as activity or a self as function, I think it's unproblematic. But what do? We take this notion of self and we turn it into more than it is. And there's something curious that happens here. Like, why are we turning it into more than what it actually is? What it is undivided activity. It's activity and it's undivided from everything else. That's what it is. But we want more. What kind of more do we want? I think the one thing that we want is we do not want insubstantiality. The fleetingness of our life. Actually, the activity part of it is deeply suspicious to us. We're defending against it. We want something stable and reliable. And it's funny, you know, religions and philosophies and so forth take the most flimsy part of ourselves, the mind, and turn it into something eternal. A soul, a true self that survives bodily death and so forth. You know, all these like strange notions. Where are they coming from? Why do we make up this stuff? I think it's a defense against insubstantiality, a defense against impermanence. All right, we do something, there's another aspect to it. By grasping this self, this functional activity that is located here, you know, it's located here. I can feel that. We turn it into the agent or author of our actions. Why? Why do we make the self into a locus of action? I think it's because we have a need for control. I'm doing this. I think we, like one of the feelings that is most hated, almost universally hated, is powerlessness. Show me someone who wants to be powerless. So we grasp ourselves and put ourselves in charge of our lives. I'm in charge of it. I can do it. I'm going to control this. We can try to use different words here. Like one word is reification. Reification, the Latin words that make up the English word reification literally means to make into a thing. To make a thing. So you turn the self into a thing. It is activity, but we're turning it into a thing. Another word here is identity. We're creating an identity. Something we can relate to and know and feel a certain kind of stability. I am whatever you are, I am such and such. That creates identity. Like, see how many statements you can, I am, this. It's not spell it out. That creates your identity when you believe in it being you. So what we do cognitively with ourselves starts to depart from how things actually exist, which is undivided activity. We're misrepresenting ourselves to ourselves. And this misrepresentation, strange as it is, causes friction. It causes friction because it's not underwritten by reality, so to speak. It's actually not how things are, but we consciously or unconsciously believe it to be so. And this takes a lot of energy. And my explanation here now, coming back to the opening, is at some point you can notice that. Maybe not see it through with clarity, but you feel it. It's not working. It's friction. I've read that the word dukkha, which we translate as suffering, right? The problem that Buddhism deals with, the etymology is a clunky axle hole. Like, it's not well oiled. It's like friction. Love that. I live and it's like, The opposite of dukkha is sukha, which is translated as happiness. I don't know. I'm doubtful of happiness, but as, an attainable goal. I have no objection to happy feelings, but, they come and go. But sukha is the smoothly running axle hole. I love that too. This is actually a vision for a life, I think. It's like a smoothly running axle hole. Like, even if you have some difficult feelings, there could be still a smoothly running life that deals with those difficult feelings. That wouldn't be happiness, but it would be something, what is that? I've tried out the word contentment, but, all these words are problematic if you drill into them, but I think you know what I mean. It's like without friction. And it's interesting to me that out of the friction, way-seeking mind arises. And like I said, there's openness. There's like, now what? Now you all ended up here, I don't know. Out of that openness, you could have, ended up somewhere else, like some other teaching, some other path. It's mysterious how that happens, like what brought you here. When we have practice leaders in our everyday Bodhisattva practice period, when they give talks for the first time in the Sangha, their assignment is to give a way-seeking mind talk, is to talk about what brought them to practice. That's what I'm talking about. What brought you to practice? And then often the story is like, well, I don't know, it was just an accident that I ended up with Zen practice because, somebody took me to a Zendo, or I had friends who were doing this, or, I attended a class, or, it's not like there's a straight line between your feeling of something needs to change in my life and, let me sit down and weigh the pros and cons of Zen practice. No, somehow it happens, and then you feel an affinity, and then you try it out, you stick with it, you explore. And if it continues to have an affinity, you stay. Right? It's like that. And it's no problem if you don't have an affinity, you leave. Go find something suitable for your way-seeking mind as it emerges. Now, if you end up in a Zen do, you start sitting. Just sitting in this school. Just sitting has the path, the dynamic of the path, completely within it. Because when you sit, you are doing something very different. Before, you didn't maybe know this, didn't see that very clearly. Attention was always targeted. It was always pursuing something. It was going for this or this. And you felt like you had a choice, like this or this, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this class, or I'm going to pursue this job opportunity, or I'm going to, fall in love with this person. I mean, you can't do much about falling in love, but it's, you can think you are deciding whether you make something of it or not. Marry that person. So, but there's attention is focused in this way. When you practice just sitting, you're giving attention the opportunity to unfocus. To undivide. This, by the way, this dynamic between focused attention, which is differentiating, division, making this as opposed to that happen, and undivided attention. I don't mean undistracted attention. I mean literally a form of attention, let's call it awareness, that is undividing. It's not differentiating. It's not picking anything out and latching onto it. This dynamic causes all kinds of confusion because your usual life is like, I've got to pursue something, right? So if that is the attitude that you're bringing to sitting, you're like, I've got to watch my breath. I have to count it. I have to do something. I have to awaken. I'm failing. I'm not doing it right. Well, how should I do it? And then you want your teacher maybe to give you some instruction. And then you're focusing on that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this now. This is going to really make it happen. But the dynamic of just sitting is that this causes friction. This actually causes friction. So as you're sitting, the instruction is just to sit, not to do anything. As you're trying to do something, it causes friction. You can feel it. You can feel the suffering, the dukkha, the axle hole that's, not frictionless. Somebody maybe gave you the instruction to watch your breath, and you are finding out painfully over some years that it's really not about that. But if you go in and say, it's really not about that, watching my breath doesn't really matter, then you're focusing on that it doesn't really matter, and that doesn't work either. Then you say, it doesn't matter what I do. Well, find out, is that true? Is that true? So Dogen called this dynamic taking the backward step. You are taking the focused attention, you could say, is something that is habitually happening, and now you're taking a backward step into a field awareness that is not focused on anything. It's just present. It's just spatially present. And then you pursue something, and then you take the backward step again. And then you do something, and then you take the backward step again, until this becomes somewhat familiar so that you can just rest there. And if something, comes to your mind, you're focusing on something, it's just you don't take it that seriously. It's just like clouds in the sky, as they say, right? It's a cloud. It's an activity. It'd be like, I should pursue this cloud, let's get after it. Cloud is ungraspable. You find out how ungraspable anything is really in the mind, and how ungraspable you are, just like clouds, ungraspable, always changing. But you can discover the sky, whatever that is something that can be rested in. But the dynamic of zazen also teaches us that if you start to identify with the sky, if you start to identify with that which is not differentiating, you are subtly creating another kind of identity, something you want to hold. Like the resting can feel like you're going to try to hold that. And this means this is incomplete too. And so you need to step forward again. There's a backward step, and then there's a forward step. In the Mahayana tradition, this is the inseparability of wisdom and compassion. Of resting in undifferentiated awareness and coming forward to meet that which is differentiated. Inseparable. I'm presenting it as if it's two things. It's not two things. The world is always already differentiated. You know, sound comes, it's differentiated. It's not like nothing's happening. It's that sound, and you are receiving it. And so it calls for a response. Sometimes the response is to do nothing. Sometimes the response is to do something very specific. The backward step cultivates receptivity. Stepping forward is to respond with precision to what is calling you. Calling your aliveness to manifest, to engage, to be involved in this world. You can hold back and, well, I'm not gonna engage. Well, okay, find out what that's like in the long run. So my point right now, actually, that I'm making is, why do I trust zazen? Because zazen has all that written into it as a practice. This can all be discovered if you pay attention. So what do you need to vow for? What are you vowing? Like, I vow to be a better person. What are you vowing? I'm actually trying to convince myself that vow has a role, right? So I'm doing it with you. I think it does have a role. Because way-seeking mind, okay, let me say first, vow has to be rooted in way-seeking mind, in the openness and not knowing of way-seeking mind. That is the origin of where vow needs to be rooted. If it's not rooted there, you are just reinforcing your reified self-structure. If you vow to be something, you are just going for a different identity. You see that? Yeah, I'm really unhappy with this identity, so I'm going to vow to have this identity. Okay, try it. Or, if you're vowing to act a certain way, now you're saying, like, I'm the author of these kinds of actions, and now I'm making myself into the author of these kinds of actions. I used to be this egotistical person. Now I'm going to be this, altruistic person. I'm going to swap the actions of egotism for the actions of altruism, and I'm going to do that. Sorry, it's a polemic here. I vow to be a goody two-shoe Buddhist. Well, you can do that. It's not Zen practice. Maybe it's some other Buddhist practice, but it's not Zen practice. So vow has to be coming from, I say rooted, sounds too stable actually, has to be coming from the openness of way-seeking mind. How to go forward, how to do this next step. Open. But this way-seeking mind is not constantly present for us. Right? The habit of self-reification just keeps coming back in. Just like I described. You may find something that excites you, you turn it into an identity. You make comparative judgments about this kind of action. No, that kind of action, yes. And you land there. That's called values. I have values. That means, are values always true? Some situations, require this, and some situations require that. Some values are pretty good, like they work 90% of the time, maybe 95%. That makes them even more dangerous. Like, democracy is just great. We are witnessing how dysfunctional it is. Doesn't mean we should abandon it. I'm not saying that. But it has its own problems. Everything has its own difficulty, Like, just subscribe to something as eternally right or true, or I don't know. I just don't think it works. So vow has to, in my view, has to connect us to way-seeking mind. It has to reconnect, like we lose it, and the vow reconnects us. Now, when I watch our full moon ceremony, I don't think that's working. I don't think, I like the full moon ceremony. I think it's beautiful. It connects us as a Sangha. But is it really connecting us with way-seeking mind? Like, maybe the full moon ceremony actually has to change so that we feel more how it's reconnecting us with way-seeking mind. It's hard to do. Like, I don't know how to do it. So that's why I'm not doing anything. So first I'm talking about it. Okay, then we maybe take some action. The vow needs to reconnect us with way-seeking mind. That's what I'm saying. So that it can provide its words. It's a concept, right? A vow is a kind of conceptual structure, and if that's what makes it dangerous, because if you identify with it, it loses its openness. So it needs to be something that is open enough so that it can actually reconnect you with way-seeking mind. But it has a power, because if you can do it, like say once a month or every day, reconnect with it, it can give you orientation of like, I need to live from this way-seeking mind. That's what I'm vowing to do. Now, look at the 4 Bodhisattva vows. Are they doing that? Let's say they are. They're doing it from 4 angles. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to awaken with them. There's a couple of things going on here that are really disturbing. One is that you're going to awaken with all beings, which is your path is not a private thing. It's not something you're doing for yourself or by yourself. This is built into that vow, is the structure of undividing, the non-structure of undividing. You're undividing self and other. The vow reminds you that your awakening is not your thing. And then it says sentient beings are numberless. So if you fall into the trap that this is like your vow to be altruistic and save all these beings, they are numberless. You are not going to succeed. So it undermines this reification of a self. This vow, in the way it's formulated, cannot be integrated into a reified self. Delusions, sometimes we say desires, I'm thinking about how to rewrite these vows. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them or release them. I've tried that word, release them. Delusions. I think the most accurate thing is to say, I vow to see through them so that they lose their power. Delusions are powerful when you don't recognize them for what they are. When you see through them, they're powerless. They're just, it's just a view among others. So what are you vowing? You are vowing to base your action not on delusion. I vow to act from something other than delusion. Delusions keep coming. They're inexhaustible. It's just what the mind does. It forms concepts and it grasps those concepts as true. That's what the mind does. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to see through them and release them so that action can come from somewhere else. And that's what the third vow is pointing out. Dharma gates are innumerable. I vow to enter them. Now, just this winter, I defined a dharma as a moment situation. This situation, that's a dharma. It's maybe not orthodox interpretation, but moment situations or situation moments are numberless. There's no end to situations we're in. I vow to enter them, meaning I vow to meet them fully. I vow to be present, engaged with this completely. Not according to my preferences, like, I'm going to be engaged with these situations, but these situations I really don't want. This causes, as you know, I don't have to explain that, causes a lot of friction. So what is the source of your action? The source of your action is your meeting of the Dharma, your meeting of the moment situation. As Dogen calls it, to let the 10,000 things come forward and actualize the self. Actualize this self now as activity. It means activity. Actualize this activity. See, it takes care of your delusion of being the author of your action. Your action comes out of the undividedness of activity. It's the 10,000 things, it brings forth an action. But it also gets rid of your delusion that you have nothing to do with it. Like, it's all determined, like whatever happens, happens. That just leads to passivity. There's nothing passive in meeting the Dharma or entering the Dharma gate. It's coming, it's not in your control, but it's this activity that is brought forth. So, like, maybe we need to, what is the word? You're participating. You're a participant all the time. So awakened action is this, meeting the situation and letting activity be brought forth through this functional self. And then the fourth vow is, the Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Now, this word unsurpassable is funny. It's strange. Maybe it should be replaced. The original, when I look it up, says it means no beyond. The translation then would be something, the Buddha way has no beyond. There's nothing beyond it. It's unsurpassable. But we read unsurpassable as like there's nothing better than the Buddha way. That's just idiotic. I mean, we are on this Buddha way because we have an affinity to it. If somebody's on another way, like, let them go. We're not comparing. This is better. It's better for me, maybe, with some humility, this works for me. But the Buddha way has no beyond. And this is just great. That means there's nothing to reach. There's nowhere to go. I vow to embody it. If you connect it with what we just discussed, it's like meeting situations. There's no beyond. I vow to embody that undivided activity. These vows are not they're not legible in some sort of immediate way. Do you know what I mean? They're strange. That's why I think zazen is fundamental. And then you also hear about the vows and you're like, huh? I'm saying this today, right? I don't know, when I was 25 and found Zen practice, I couldn't have given this talk. Something unfolds, some clarity unfolds from this way-seeking mind. You need to keep that alive. Zazen has its own dynamic to connect us with this way-seeking mind. And vow, in this case with these rather paradoxical bodhisattva vows, vow is keeping a certain kind of orientation. I hope this talk, you were able to sense something in it, like that there is that these vows, the way they're formulated, they are actually connecting to this pivot that is alive in our lives, if we find a way to make the connection. When you make the connection, then you can have this sort of, well, now I have to be afraid to use the word. Then you have this bodhisattva identity. But it's not something you can solidify. That bodhisattva identity lives in the paradoxical dynamic of the backward and forward step, and the four vows are trying to articulate this paradoxical dynamic from four different angles. Thank you.